Welcome to another episode of Recipe to Success. Today I'm joined by someone I've watched for many years, so this one's going to be special. Faisal, how you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming on.
Absolute pleasure. I'm really looking forward to it.
You know what? I feel so special now that I've had you and Omar on the podcast. It just feels like, you know what? It's right.
You know what? Like I told you off air, I'm just Omar's little brother.
You're a lot more than that, and that's what we're going to get into today.
I like being Omar's little brother. It's my little protection.
Makes sense. But for anyone that, doesn't know who you are, I'm sure obviously you've been around for a long time, but for anyone that hasn't seen you before, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah, so I'm a podcaster. I run a podcast called Freshly Grounded. It's quite in a niche space, but it's probably the biggest in its niche space. And then I do consulting on branding and digital infrastructure, again for that niche space. So they're the kind of two things that I stay busy with.
You're an entrepreneur as well, because you've done a lot of things over the years.
I have done a lot of things over the years, and it's taught me a lot, because you when you go through it, when you go through it and you make mistakes, you see many years down the line that you've been able to pick up on those mistakes, and then like the projects that you run now, the benefit that you've taken from them. So yeah, I guess so. We'll
go through it in detail, but before we get into that, how have you been over the past year? How has lockdown affected you and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I've been good, really. I've been good. I can't really complain, because things could have been a lot worse. Obviously, I think the biggest challenge was the unknown and having to adapt. But, we managed to get through it, and I've really enjoyed being around my son. That's been really nice. And so, man, like I could be in a lot worse. I could be in a lot worse of a situation. So yeah, things have been alright.
When it first happened, were you thinking like, how am I going to do the podcast?
Panicking, bro. It was bro. Here's what happened. When lockdown got announced, it got announced 2 or 3 weeks before our live event. So really, what we are is we're really like an events business, right? Like how we monetized Freshly Grounded was always through events, because we would do these massive events like twice a year, and I've always wanted to do events. That's been like my big thing. I was always, from young, I wanted to do like live events, and so being in a niche that we're in, nobody in our niche, I think like the type of events that you see in our niche are very predictable. And so I wanted to do stuff like do an event in London's West End, and then we were able to do it. And then so I wanted to go bigger and bigger every time. And so this event was going to be a tour. It was going to be just a 3-city tour, the biggest cities, so Manchester, Birmingham and London. I'd signed off all of the venues. We were 2 weeks or 3 weeks away from jumping on tour, and then lockdown got out. So I was panicking, because I was like, what's going to happen to the tour? What's going to happen to our sponsors? I'm going to have to do with all this legal stuff. And then it was at a time where this was such a big lesson for me, because it was at a time where legally venues didn't have to shut down, but the government had said that we like recommend like no more.
It was all up in the air at the beginning,
right? So I rang the venues, and there's one venue in London, Aldwych Theatre, right, West End, London's West End, and I'm happy saying the name because I have such a great relationship with them. The guys at the Aldwych, they're just amazing, honestly. They're like they've been with us on our highs, and then when we had this low of not knowing about the event, they were with us and made things so easy for us, and it makes you want to continue that relationship and carry on with them. But there was other venues that they would use, like they would almost be like, well, legally we don't have to close you down, so if you guys want to cancel, you can cancel, but legally there's no law telling us that we have to close you down, and therefore all of these legal implications, right? Like losing money left, right, and these venues are not cheap. And then, so that was a bit of drama. And it was the first time I was dealing with like, talking big venues, bro. Like, what ended up happening is the Manchester venue that we were going to use ended up becoming a Nightingale Hospital in Manchester.
Wow. And
so you can imagine how big the venue was. And so it was tough, bro. It was tough. But we got through it. And then I tried to buy time before cancelling, because if I said that I'm going to cancel it, it's like the onus is on me. You're losing money, all this kind of stuff. But if I just waited out and the government said you have to cancel, then they would have had to cancel on me. And so luckily, bro, like maybe it was like 4 or 5 days of just remember it was that time when Boris was doing an announcement every day, bro.
Everyone was tuning in, Sky News, BBC News.
I was watching because I was just like say something about hospitality, say something, and then he'd be like, But I wanted him to say that legally you can't do hospitality because it was inevitable that we weren't going to be able to do the events now. There was no way we could do it at all. But now it was a case of we're a small business, bro. If for people like those venues, bro, for them to have to cancel on us, you know, they just have to give us our money back. It's not a big deal, or as big of a deal as me to lose that money and not get it back. And we're small.
And you still have to refund all the tickets and
bro.
All of
So
that.
so it was challenging at the beginning. It was very challenging, but we got through it.
Yeah, I think the beauty was that once we realized that we're all in it together and that, you know, the government is actually supporting us because they know, okay, this has never happened before. That's when it became a little bit easier and we just learned to get along with it. But one thing that I really want to get into is Freshly Grounded and also kind of how it came about. Because one of the beautiful things that I think you've done is you've turned not only a podcast really into a business and a form of livelihood for not just yourself but for the team as well, at a point where people didn't really know how to monetize podcasts and didn't really know where it was going to go, because you started it what year?
I started Freshly Grounded our first episode was early 2017.
So let's go into the story, how it started, how it transitioned from the next phase and all that stuff.
Okay, so how it started was I was on a tube. I remember, like, I kind of even remember the moment I had the thought, I think, unless I'm like making up in my head. And you know when like you tell yourself a story so much you start believing it. It could be that, but from what I remember, I was on the tube and I used to work in Central. I used to work in Regent Street at the time in retail. So I was on the train now, and it was an hour journey every time, and I was like going for a transition in my own life where I started taking life more seriously. I started taking my faith more seriously. And so I started falling off of like listening to things that I didn't want to listen to. There was a lot of things I didn't necessarily want to listen to on the tube. I wanted to stay entertained. And then I wanted to do something productive in that hour. I wasn't on the level yet where I could listen to stuff like audiobooks. And so I just fell into podcasts. I would listen to sports podcasts, and they were podcasts them times. You're talking 2016. They hadn't really transitioned over to the UK yet. You'd have like BBC and Sky would have some podcasts, but again, it wasn't really that big. And then they were American, so I used to listen to American podcasts, the typical stuff that people used to listen to, like Fighter and the Kid, Joe Rogan, stuff like that. And I thought, wow, maybe there's space for like a podcast for people like me who want to listen to something productive on their journeys to school, to work, but and they don't necessarily, and they fit into the same category that I fit in, which is like a young Muslim male who is just like finding his feet, finding out like how he wants to live his life and stuff like that. That was kind of where I was at. So I thought, all right, let me see if I can create it, and then that's where the idea started. Then the idea became the next phase. So my name's Faisal, and some people would call me Faze, and so it made sense. I can't remember if it was me that made that name or my brother, but I think it was me. And so the next phase was born. At the time I was living at my mum's house, and so I just got a desk we had to leave the studio that we had at the time, the office that my brother had. And so we were in a transition period where Omar was getting married, Omar being my brother. He was getting married, and then like by the end of it, I actually ended up getting married a couple months before him as well. So it was at that time. So because there was a transition happening in our life, we didn't know what was happening. So he got rid of the office that he would let me work at with him, and I put one on the desk in my bedroom, and I was just filming it on a GoPro in my bedroom, bro. That was the next phase for a bit. And then the issue I had was I realized that every week I need a guest. So I thought, and it was tough. So I thought if I can just have a co-host, that would be ideal, and I can like start it properly. And so around the time I had that thought, I went to Gambia. I was invited to Gambia for a charity trip where we were helping to build an orphanage for kids, like the school, a play centre, everything, just all in one. And that's where I met Sam, who you've obviously interviewed already. And Sam and I just got on like a house on fire, man. We just had such a laugh. And so when we came back, I asked him, I'm looking for a co-host. I want to start this podcast. Would you be down? He said, look, bro, I don't really have the time. Maybe I can try and... I like your vibe and I believe in you, so maybe I can fit it in. And he fit it in, and I'm just forever indebted to Sam because of him believing in me, because he had no reason to believe in me. I'm like 4 years younger than him.
And you complemented each other quite well as well.
I think so. And it was nice. That was what we were like off air in Gambia. And so, and that's where Freshly Grounded was born, is me and Sam. for about the first 2-3 years. And Sam, like you said on your podcast, is very much so still involved in the business side of things. He's still involved with podcast. He comes in and out as and when he can, but he's very much so, he's running an entire empire and he's smashing it. So we're very, very proud of him. But that's the story of how it started.
Mm-hmm. So when Freshly Grounded, when you transitioned from Next Phase to Freshly Grounded, at that point, did you realize, okay, this is the direction I want to stay in? I'm not going to change any names. I'm not going to kind of mess around. And I'm just going to go full steam ahead.
Yeah, so I have this personality trait, which is to be very indecisive and to change things quickly. People call it shiny new thing syndrome. I really have that. And so I promised myself this time that I'm gonna see this one through. And so I am proud of that, the fact that it has now been 4 years, 5 years, and we've stuck it out. So there's been challenges, as you can imagine, along the journey, but yeah, that was something I kind of promised to myself.
Mm-hmm. And when you started, it obviously started as a passion project, and you were trying to create something for people like yourself. But at what point did you realize, okay, I can actually create some sort of monetization for this and not offend the viewers while still giving great content, but also give yourself some level of stream of income as well?
Yeah, I think that's the key. That was really important to me. So it's important that we monetize, because I wanted to do it properly. The goal of monetization is not just I want to monetize and just like make this a cash cow. The goal of monetization is that I can do it full time and therefore put more effort into it and create great content and expand it. And in order for me to give all of my time in order to do that, I have to give it all of my time. In order to give it all of my time, it has to be able to monetize. And so from day one, I told Sam, like, I have a feeling that we can figure out a strategy to monetize this in a way where it's not immoral. Or not to say that anyone who does monetize directly for their audience stuff is immoral, put it behind a paid wall as being immoral, but I just didn't want to have those barriers, like put it behind a paid wall and stuff. And I wanted the listeners to feel like a community, and to feel like a community, they have to feel like they're really part of it and they have a say in it and stuff. So I didn't want to lose that element. And Sam's response, because from day one I was saying that to him, his response was always, "Bro, I'm not in this for the money. I'm not in this for the money. If like something comes from it, like, and you hand me something, like, fine, but I'm not in this for the money." And that was very sincere of him. And that's why I did my bit of saying to him, "Look, fine, you leave it to me, and then I'll just give you some money." So it was always an intention, but I wanted to, like you said, do it in a way where it wasn't like, I don't know, at the expense of
you weren't selling out almost.
Yeah.
Because I think people don't realize that to create a podcast or platform, you have to invest a lot of money into it, whether that is cameras, whether that is staff, whether that is whatever. But there is costs involved. And so, yes, doesn't matter how much of an amazing person you are, of course you want to put content out, but there comes a time where you have to be realistic and say, okay, can I afford to put this content out? And I think that's what maybe people don't realize, is that we have to monetize in some ways, just because it gives it an incentive. Otherwise you're going to be doing all sorts of things. But fast forward, actually before we do that, for anyone that hasn't ever heard of Freshly Grounded, let's talk about some of the accolades. And I know you're quite a humble person, so obviously it's going to be difficult, but let's talk about some of the success you've had with Freshly Grounded, maybe the numbers or the achievements, some things that were special to yourself.
Oh, man, okay. So one of the things I'm going to go into probably what's in like our brand pack and stuff for our sponsors and stuff like that. So we have the main one
You're really struggling to do this.
Yeah. The main one I like to use often is that we very quickly became a #1 podcast in iTunes. And so there's like different categories, as you know, in iTunes. There's like your category. So we've been #1 in spirituality, maybe in because then once we did spirituality, I had this like idea that I want to hit #1 in loads of different categories. So after we hit #1 in spirituality, I moved us over to a really well populated category, which is the one that is most podcasts are in, called society and culture. I felt like that still resonated with us. So I went into society and culture, and I think we did pretty well there. I can't remember what our top what we maxed out at there, but I believe it was in the top 10. And I think when we started, we hit #1 across all categories. Maybe it was also longer. So I like to mention that because I suppose it gives it context. But I don't know, man. What do you want to know? Like downloads, listeners?
No, I mean we don't want to. We don't need to do that. But it's more about just so people understand how well you've actually done, because there's a difference between starting a podcast and
Yeah.
actually running a successful podcast. So that's why I wanted to understand that.
Yeah, I'm very appreciative of the listeners that we have, and we've been able to. I think the great thing is also like long term, I suppose, consistency. Like we've been able to like manage those numbers for a while and stuff, and it's very, very humbling. It's very, very humbling when you look at those numbers. It is incredibly humbling, and sometimes like you need to, like you mention them in certain, like I have like a go-to email that I write to people who I want to have on the podcast that I don't know, and so you have to some extent like have a line of some or some sort. So I mentioned like we just hit X amount of downloads, and that's like we'd love to have you on, so perhaps to give it some kind of standing. But yeah.
And then fast forward, you were creating content, putting it out there, and you eventually did launch your live event. So let's talk about that a little bit. How did that come about, and also kind of the ins and outs of running an event?
Yeah, so the live event, that's when you asked when did we realize we could monetize, or how did we monetize. That's when I realized that we could monetize. I always did want to monetize it, but until episode 100 we hadn't really managed to get a strategy together, and so we fell upon it by accident. I always wanted to do a celebratory 100th episode, so I wanted to get the community in, do a live episode, and again I wanted to do it with like some sort of finesse, and so we ended up getting, I think it was called King's Theatre or King's Auditorium. It's in King's Cross, London, and it's where Prince performed as well. And so I liked it. I liked the fact that it looked like very like non-Asian. Do you know what I mean? In fact, like yeah, because unfortunately there's a stereotype that the kind of events that like Asian people put on is like sticky wedding hall floors, like round tables, and so I wanted to go against that. Not because I'm not like proud of like.
You don't want to be boxed in.
Yeah, I just wanted to expand out, man. I wanted to give our community I wanted our community to have something that they're proud of as well. And so it was really a beautiful venue, man. And the King's Place it was called. So that was interesting because I always wanted to do a live event. There's the first time that I did it properly, and I learned a lot. Like everything from logistics, I realized that we needed a team of volunteers, and so many people chose to volunteer. We had two head volunteers. But everything had to be thought about, man, from how the volunteers are going to communicate to each other, how they're going to communicate to us. I had to build a core team for the first time. So that was like this outside of the volunteers. It was the first time I probably had to have like people on board that I had to manage, but on an executive level. So like they were like my team, and then they manage smaller teams. And so that was like an event manager, so someone who runs things on the day. There was a like a tech guy who like managed like everything inside the auditorium. We basically listed it as someone who's running things inside the auditorium, someone who's running things outside the auditorium, and then me. I was like still running the event because I'm a control freak.
Even though you were the host.
I'm still a control freak, man. I really find it hard to let go.
It's hard. And you had some amazing guests as well on that day.
Yeah, Josh LaMonica, who I'm a massive fan of. He's like basically like in short form, like the #1 barber in the world, and he's got like all of the awards to show it. Sam, as you know, my brother Omar. We had Ajmal Lats, and so a bunch of people who were very kind to give us their time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And once you had kind of completed the event, how did it feel that you actually did it?
Oh, bro, ecstasy, man. Just, I think, like one of the happiest feelings in the world. Like, it feels like you've accomplished something and you physically see it in front of you. I just love live events so much. I just can't wait for them to come back. I think it's because when you put so much passion into something, and then there's one there's one kind of event at the end of it, right? It's like that's what you've built all the way up to, and then you do it, and then you feel like you're down to a satisfactory level, like you just feel so happy, man.
You feel accomplished.
Yeah. So after the events, me and my now event manager Kareem, we have a routine that after the event we've been like just doing like all this prep. So it takes 6 months to prep an event, and so we've done 6 months worth of prep, like dealing with venues, dealing with contracts, dealing with people, dealing with staff. And on the day, it's just manic. Like, you don't want to be around me on the day, bro. And it's like, you're just like, on the day, I have like a walkie-talkie that I'm dealing with, like, my, like, team. And then I've got, like, another, like, device on me dealing with like the theaters team, and then like it's just like absolutely insane. I'm like actually on the event, hosting the event and stuff. And so by the end of it, me and my event manager Kareem, we literally jump into my car. Everything's like we've arranged everything in advance. Like everything's unloaded into like different cars and stuff. And it's just me and him. We go down to Stacks and Sushi in Covent Garden, or was it Sushi? Yeah, Stacks Sushi, and we just have a massive like display of sushi. We just like eat sushi until like our heart's content, and that's our like
celebration.
Because we both love sushi, and so we just like save it for that. We just like eat as much as we can possibly eat.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And then fast forward again. Recently, you launched the Freshly Grounded game. So let's talk about that a little bit, because that's something really unique, not really seen before in a podcast scene. So that's again an example of your innovation in the podcast game.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting about Freshly Grounded game is that people, I've had a lot of people on to me about that, because I'm one of those people who like speaks before he thinks, and then I regret it after. Like I was so vocal about, as I'm sure like you being in the tech space, I'll probably as well. I'm like, it's all about digital products. It's all about digital product. Like physical product is like not the way forward anymore. We need to like think ahead. And so because I've always been so vocal about digital product, I was really anti like physical product. And so then when we did it, I've had, even now I get people question me like, what made you change your mind? So the story of the game is COVID happened, we went to pandemic, and then the event got paused. We end up so like the first like 6 weeks of that was just like arranging everything and dealing with the collateral of the event. And so the event hasn't been cancelled, it's been postponed, and we're carrying on with it and everything. It's gonna be, I'm really looking forward to it. But we have to deal with that. We have to deal with a lot of like legal stuff with venues and all of that. And when it was done, we kind of we kind of sat down, and I came across a concept which is conversation cards, right? And I really enjoyed the concept of it, and I thought, let me test it out, this concept, because it doesn't seem to exist in our niche, right? Like, and there's so much we could do with it in our niche. And so what I did is I took these times, I think like now the restrictions had like gone, so you could go to restaurants. So I took my wife out on a date, and we were sat, and I said to her, we're not going to speak about Zakaria now, because Zakaria our son, because otherwise that's all we speak about. I pulled out the cards, and I said, we're going to play this game, and it was just a conversation cards from another brand. I just wanted to test it because her character is that she's the opposite to me. She's like mature, very strong and stuff like that, and I'm like erratic and like loud, right? And so I thought, if it works right between us, then this is something that could work, because if someone like that who is like yourself perhaps, or like others, like we all have different personalities, some people are introverted, extrovert, if it can work with like an extrovert and an introvert, then maybe we're onto something. And it worked, but we had a great conversation, and the questions were so deep. So
explain the concept a little bit for anyone wondering.
All right, the concept is, it's just so the game, the Freshly Grounded game, it's 100. So we've got two versions now, but the original game, it's 100 conversation cards, and in them you have questions like, for example, I actually I gave you both versions of the game in the gift, so you'll see them there.
Thank you. We're definitely gonna try it out.
They're just like questions that make you really think, bro. Like the way we design, we design each question like, bro, we got footage of us like coming up with questions, and you could put it in a time lapse, so just sitting there like scrapping questions, writing questions, scrapping, and it's based on like user psychology and stuff like that, and it's meant to help you like dig deeper within yourself. So it could be something, there's like really simple ones. I'm trying to think of an example now. One of my favorite questions is, think about someone you recently had a disagreement with and tell me 3 positive things about them without telling me who they are. And the idea of that question is that you're mad at someone, you've just had an argument with them, and you're forced to think about great stuff about them. And in thinking about good stuff about them, perhaps you'll fix that relationship. And that's what we want. We want it to get positivity out of you. Or it might be like the one that we were playing, I think there was a question that was like, what's your earliest memory of happiness? And it really makes you think back, you know. And so that's the concept. It's cards and questions that are made to make you think. Or it might be about me to you. So it might be a card that I've got, and the question is to you, give me a piece of advice on anything, and you have to give me a piece of advice. and it's designed so that it can work with brothers and sisters, with a couple, with parents and children. So that's the cards. And then when it worked, I realized that perhaps we can do this in our niche. And then I went to Kareem again, who works Freshly Grounded, and I said, we've got to make this happen. He loved the idea, and we designed it. Took us some time, we wanted to perfect it. And then the process was so interesting, man. Like, what supplier do you go to? How do you get a supplier? We had to learn all of that fresh again, and it was a really, really interesting journey.
Along your journey, you've developed products over the years, and you've had that love for products, which has also matched your love for creating content. So was that always a mix that you intended? Because let's go back a little bit. I mean, we spoke about the game, and it's interesting to me because I know you was always putting out content, and whether it was pushing a different product or whatever it may be, was that always the idea, or was it just that you were releasing content and you realized, okay, you know what, let me do this. I have a love for this. I want to try this.
Nah, man, I was anti-product. The idea was definitely with Freshly Grounded, if it's going to monetize, it's going to be something digital. And now, like, the two biggest ways Freshly Grounded is monetized are both physical, events and the cards. So I suppose you just get taken down. You start something and you don't really know where you're going to end up, and you get taken down a path that you don't expect. But I'm very grateful for it, because the systems we have in place now, I think what I didn't realize is that you can sell physical product in a very digital way. I didn't know that. Like, before, I saw it as a very clunky thing. You got product, someone's made an order, you have to print the order, you have to stick the label on, you have to go to the post office. And now we have such a streamlined process where it's all automated. Royal Mail come to us every day. When they scan the barcode on our system talks to Royal Mail system, and so when Royal Mail scan it, our system marks it as shipped. Whereas before I thought, I'm going to have to go to each person and mark it. So all of these systems you learn. So it's a very digital way that our physical product runs, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. And let's go back a little bit in the story, because I want to give context to how you've got to this point, because obviously the game has been amazing. It's been successful. And I think people now may be wondering where Faisal came from and how it all begun. So let's go to the upbringing a little bit and the early days, and how you entered entrepreneurship.
So I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that I've like been known in school as Omar's brother, and I was really proud of it. And I've learned so much of almost all of anything that I've learned in business has been because of him. And I think that he doesn't do himself justice, in the sense that nobody truly knows how amazing of an entrepreneur and a thinker he is. I'm amazed every day. Like, when he's on a call, I was at his house the other day, and he was on a call to I think his finance team or something, and I asked him to put it on speaker just because I want to hear the conversation. I learned so much by just listening to him, how he speaks, how he like manages conversation and stuff. So even then, when I was about 15 and he was 16, 17, we started doing work together from our bedroom at home. I would like design, and he would get business, and I would like create a website or like MySpace covers and stuff like that. And then he started designing, and so it was like that, like the typical stuff I suppose that everyone was doing around that time. And then I think almost maybe gone over the story of like we were then like introduced to some guys who kind of wanted to invest in us as brothers, and then we ended up learning very fast in a really mean and horrible way about business, but it was lovely because we came out at the other end, and it strengthened us. So my journey started very young. 14, 15 is when I started, like, I suppose, getting my feet wet with entrepreneurship. I very much so was carried into by the shadow of my brother, which was nice. And we did a lot of things together. At like 16, we was like sitting in a meeting room with like the CEO of BT, I think it was, and like property investors in Dubai. And for me, I was like, but you're learning how to conversate with these people and stuff, which is a great lesson. You know, we learned a lot of things very early, and so it meant that by 18, 19, where we should probably be very early on, we were fairly seasoned. But you're learning new things every day. And also my dad has always been a businessman and stuff, and so there's an argument to say that it's in our nurture. So I suppose that's been the journey.
Mm-hmm. And different to Omar, you actually went down the uni path.
Yeah.
And that's also where you stumbled across another business, right?
Yes. So I went to university. I studied criminology in Cardiff, and I'm grateful that I did, because I learned a lot kind of in terms of independence in university. Not so much. My education hasn't necessarily benefited me that much. I don't really do anything that's to do with criminology now, but the independence of living out. And when I was there, I didn't necessarily start. So my brother ran a clothing company when he was in sixth form, and I kind of just took it over. I rebranded it, I renamed it to Zahoor, which was like Arabic caps and stuff. So you'd see people walking with like salam on their hat, and it would have been one of two companies probably. And it was fun, it was enjoyable, but I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned, and it was the first time I understood that you need to be able to manage cash flow, and cash flow is everything. If you don't manage cash flow, everything else falls apart.
Just for value of the audience, because I put up a story today and we got a lot of questions, and one of them was we got quite a lot of times was some of the mistakes that you made, and sharing those mistakes so that people can actually benefit them and prevent themselves from making those mistakes. So from that experience, whatever you obviously want to share, what were some of the things that you learned that maybe you would have done differently?
Yeah, it's very easy, man. I think there's two like fundamental mistakes that I will forever be grateful that I made early, because hopefully I will never make them again. And the first one is managing cash flow, what I just mentioned. If you can't manage cash flow in a company, then bring someone in who can manage your cash flow.
Let's break that into real time. So you mean keeping money in the business, stopping yourself from taking every penny out,
exactly,
things like that, right?
Managing money, stopping yourself from taking things out, understanding what money is used for, how much you need to save for taxes. If
revenue's not profit.
Saving, even little things like saving pennies, what you can do, because if you're selling now like 6,000 units of the game, and you can get it $1 cheaper, you can get manufactured $1 cheaper. Every 6,000 units that you're selling, you're saving $6,000. Do you know what I mean? And so I didn't think of things in that way. So there's that budgeting.
The things that we're never taught, basically.
Yeah, things that you're not taught, man. And especially things that like dealing with the whole side of like books and taxes and stuff. You don't get taught that kind of stuff. And I thought that as long as you have an accountant, you're okay. But you're not, like, even if you have a great accountant, you still need someone on your end to
bookkeep.
Yeah, look after things for the accountant and communicate and have a great relationship with the accountant and stuff like that. You can't just be like, I'm going to make whatever money, and then like in January or April, like send my bank statements to the account. It doesn't work. So cash flow was one. And I'd say if you don't know how to manage cash flow, you're just not good at it. You don't have a personality where you're good at it. Bring someone. The first person you should bring in is someone to manage cash flow when you can. Because if you can't manage cash flow, then everything else falls apart.
There's no business. Yeah.
The second thing I learned, bro, and I've only learned this since like in the last couple of years of Freshly Grounded, is delegating. I did not realize how important it was to delegate tasks. So my mentality was always stretching myself until I can't like do something. So that meant that everything got done, but it never got done with excellence. It just got done so I can carry on, right? So because I can edit videos, I don't need a video editor. Because I can, I don't know, like pay invoices. I don't need someone to like manage logistics and cash flow, and all of those different things, right? Because I can do everything at enough for me to just carry on, right? And now I realize how important it is, and taking the short-term cut of money to be able to pay people, it's going to make you so much more money long-term. And so now we have a full-time editor on board, and so we don't have to touch any edits. And although I can edit, first of all, because that's his sole job, he's going to be so much better than I can be, and he also has a lot more time for edits. And then we have someone, like I said, who manages logistics and cash flow, and so that's something that I was never good at. And now that we've given it to him, we have stuff like that royal system. I promise you, bro, if I was still doing it all by myself, the game would be sold in a way where we'd sell a game, I'd print on our HP printer an invoice manually, I'd print a sticker manually, I'd stick it on, and I'd get a bag, like a bin bag, and I'd walk to the Royal Mail and I'd stand in the queue. Honestly, bro. But since we've got people to manage systems and stuff like that, it's been amazing because like stuff like that remote system stuff. So they're the two biggest lessons: delegating as fast as you can when you can, not delegating too early. But a lot of people don't have issues. I don't think delegating too early. I think a lot of people have issues delegating too late, and then managing cash flow.
I think also like from my journey as well, I had a similar thing with finances, and for me it was understanding that I can't necessarily be the best at everything, and that's okay, because I think we're taught like just do everything yourself and don't give equity away, and you know, keep everything to yourself, because maybe we grow up from a fair level of thinking, that, you know, don't do this because you're going to get in trouble, like this is going to happen. And realistically you have to make those jumps, because then you can focus on what you're good at. And another thing that I think you might actually resonate with is the guilt of feeling that you should be more productive than you are, because you want to do everything, but the reality is that by you focusing on a certain amount of things, you're going to do that a lot better than doing everything.
Yeah,
essentially.
I think I see that now that I have a son. That's what like aligned all of that, because it made me realize that I don't actually want to spend all night editing. I'm willing to accept that an edit may be like subpar for the sake of me being able to spend family time, and it's not subpar because someone's focusing on the editing, so it's always gonna be better. But
it's just that control thing, right?
It's a control thing. It's horrible, isn't it? It's very it's a horrible thing. But when you can master that and you can delegate, then you know things work out a lot better.
Mm-hmm. So then obviously, you know, we spoke about that. So from Izaha, then we went to the next phase and Freshly Grounded. Did you always have a love for creating content?
Yeah, I really did, man.
Because I used to love your vlogs. Like they were just so high energy, and you know, it was nice. Like you're having a rough day, you chuck on Faisal.
Yeah, man. I love content, bro. And in recent years, I've gone through like a real like mental battle with content. But I've got videos of me like when I was like 3-4 years old, entertaining the entire house of like aunties and uncles and stuff like that, and like dancing for them and stuff like that. And I think it's just something that I've always really enjoyed. I've enjoyed the idea that people can be entertained by, people are happy and entertained, and I've been able to provide that for them. And a lot of people, if you speak to a lot of people who are great at cooking, you ask them, why do you enjoy cooking? And they say, because I love watching someone like enjoy the food. I think that's what it was for me. But then you get lost as well along the way and stuff. It's not all smooth sailing.
What do you think? Where does the love for content stem from? Because obviously at some point you had to pick up the camera and do it. So was that something you had thought about for a while, or was it just, okay, I have this idea, let me do it? Going back to your, you know, making things happen attitude.
So I used to create that kind of content, but only for my Facebook friends. So even in high school and stuff, on when I first got a camera that could, a phone that could record with the camera, it was still like, I don't know, Motorola or something, but it was sufficient enough to record some videos. So I used to make videos and vlogs, but they'd be for my Facebook friends and upload privately to Facebook. So I suppose as far back as I can remember, I was creating content. But when I transitioned to doing it publicly, I can't remember what made me do it. But I just really, really enjoyed it. And I still do enjoy it. And I sometimes wish I have more time for it, or I put more energy into it. But then you're in this battle because you're growing up. And as you can imagine, you start like, I'm 27 now, you start like seeing the number 30 and you think, do I want to be known as a guy who's like the comedy that I love, bro, the comedy that I absolutely like, not even just comedy, like how I'm entertained is when you watch people who like are happy to like be the butt of the joke. Have you, like, if you for example see like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and you see Charles Boyle, or you see like The Office and you see the main character of The Office, the US version, what's that character's name? How annoying is that? But Steve Carell's character, right? Like that is like the epitome of humor for me, man. Like someone who could just like see, like they've dropped their ego enough that they don't mind.
It's basically you.
It's just so hilarious. But the problem with that, bro, is that you don't want other people to take you for a joke. You want to have like a balanced line. And so when you grow older and stuff, and like you get married, and you don't want like your family to. When it was just me, I felt like if someone even was like, "Oh, Faisal was a bit of a joke," it doesn't affect me. But then now that there's other people who I represent, now I'm be like, oh, like I wouldn't want their reputation or like or something to
be
or them
off
to
the
feel about.
stemmed
And
off
so
that,
then, and even though that's not even the case, bro. We've never had that conversation. It's never been the case. I've never been like stopped by anybody to do the content or enjoy the content. But it was just like a thing that started coming in my head. Like I'm becoming older. I'm a married man, children. Like, do I want to be like that? But I miss it, man. It's just the funniest. It makes me so happy to watch that kind of stuff, man. Just like script stuff like that. Watch that kind of stuff is very fun.
Other than that, how did marriage change Faisal? How did it change how you act in business and how you manage your time and all that stuff? Because I think following your journey, I was very aware that you and Omar had a very good work ethic. You were willing to be, in the office till late and work early hours of the morning or whatever it may be. So how did that change you?
I don't think it changed too much. And I think that's a testament to like having a wife who understands that you want to chase your passion, and therefore what comes with it is stuff like sometimes late nights, working bank holidays and stuff like that. However, you have to also not take the mick. And so there's that balance there. But what it really changed for me was how I see cash flow. Again, I know I'm repeating that again and again, but it really did, like, it made me understand that there has to be long-term goals.
Because now it wasn't just about you.
Yeah, like you have like very long-term goals, and I've never been someone who is. I don't have anything against it, but I've never really been anyone who's too much into like buying things like watches or like too much designer stuff. And
Living
stuff like
lavish,
that.
basically.
I do like my tech, so I'm not like trying to like play it like I'm like
you're not
humble.
a simple like
minimalist. I love my tech. Like if someone was to spend like $5,000 on a watch, I'd rather spend it on tech, right? So I'm not sure, but however, being married and having kids and stuff does make you think more about how you manage anything. Like for example, now I do want to buy a watch, but I want to buy a watch for my son as an asset for him, as like a appreciating asset. So because I could put away, if I put away like something like 90 quid a month into an account for him, when he's 18 he'd have near enough 18 grand. I don't know, that maths might be really off, but that 18 grand what it is today wouldn't even cover like hardly anything. Probably wouldn't even buy him a car in the future when he's 18 years old because of inflation and that kind of stuff. So I'd rather I'm now starting to think like that, which I never thought like before. Like, what assets can I buy for my son so when he's older he's got something to his name and stuff like that.
So now that you are a parent, what are some of the things that you growing up maybe experienced that you don't want to put your children through? Because I'm always quite conscious about that. Like, what am I going to do different, and how am I going to allow my kids to maybe not go through some of the things that I went through? So I'm quite curious about that.
I guess I've never thought about that. I guess I don't see things in retrospect like that, because I'm thankful for everything that I went through growing up. Like, I mean, and like, not that I went through anything crazy, but I'm just grateful for my upbringing. So there's nothing that comes to mind. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said there was. I guess I don't even, because some people, I suppose it's good to think like that, but I don't know, my mind just doesn't work that way, I guess. I'm just like looking ahead and thinking about some of the experiences I want to have with him. Yeah. You know,
also the disciplines that you have in business, do you think that some of them have changed because of having kids? Like, I know one of the things you're quite confident about is waking up early.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a byproduct of having kids, or do you think that is because you have understood the benefits of waking up early?
No, I've always enjoyed waking up early, man. Yeah, I've enjoyed waking up early for a long time now. And having kids actually is very helpful because they wake up early, and so now you're forced. But it's amazing, man. Like, waking up early is just the best thing ever. I really try and spread that to like as many people as I can. It's just, there's so many benefits in that morning time. You get done so much more between like I don't know, 7 and 11 in the morning than you would get done between 2 and 7 in the evening. But
what about for people that, say they're night owls? How do you combat that?
I don't. For some,
because I'm sure you were a night owl.
I was, yeah. I used to define myself as a night owl, and I have a video on my YouTube channel called "Why I'm a Morning Person," or "Why You Should Become a Morning Person from a Former Night Owl," something like that. Because I did used to define myself as a night owl, but I don't believe it, bro, because I think the night is for sleep. Like, I find it very hard to be convinced that I work better at night and stuff like that. And it's a very controversial opinion because people say, no, I just am a night owl. But I would challenge somebody to wake up 5 a.m. every day, sleep by 9 p.m., 10 p.m. in the evening, wake up at 5 and see what that morning is looking like. Bro, the sun's rising, you got your hot coffee that you just like freshly brewed, like you're having your breakfast, you feel good. I don't think you could beat it, man.
You tried not to say freshly grounded, isn't it?
Yeah, freshly brewed. Bro, I don't think you could beat it, man. Like, I've done the whole night thing, and you do get a bit of lethargicness, and I don't know, man. Is lethargicness a word? I don't think it's a word. Lethargic.
We'll make it a word.
Lethargic, yeah, you get lethargic.
So what are some of the other disciplines that you have, like being in business and having been in business for a few years?
That's an amazing question. Wow.
Trying, man.
No, that is an amazing question.
I'm with the host of Freshly Grounded. I have to bring my A game.
I'm an awful podcast host, bro. That's one thing I know about myself. Oh, that's a great question. What other disciplines? Okay, so waking up early. Honesty is probably the biggest one. I just can't ever live with myself or sleep at night if I used dishonesty as a means to make a living in any way, even if it's on a small perspective, like just like one little deal, or like I can't do that. And so with the honesty thing, I think I try, first of all, I try and pass that down to the team as well, but the team is very much so already like that. I don't think I would ever bring someone on board that I feel like isn't honest. But the honesty thing is important because you wouldn't be able to live. I personally wouldn't be able to live myself. I don't think anybody realistically would be able to sleep on after dishonest business. But I also think there's no like blessings in that kind of wealth. You don't want to build wealth in a dishonest way. So even if it's something small, man, like I don't know, you can think of the like most menial thing. We've had experiences in our office that are just like hilarious, bro. Like what we did when we did an advert for the game, right? One of the guys who came out to do the advert, he ended up leaving £1 coin, and one of the boys on the Freshly Grounded team picked up on it and was like, "Oh, there's this £1 here," and I think it's the guy was Zach. He was like, "I think this is Zach's £1," and it was an honest conversation, bro. Like he said, "I think that's Zach's £1," and I said, "Oh, that's fine." I said, he said, "Can you put it in your drawer? And next time you see Zach, make sure you give him his £1." And I kept that in my drawer. And then the only reason I'm remembering that now as an example is because I ended up keeping that in my drawer. And then recently, because we were renovating the whole office, we dashed all the desks. And I remembered his £1. And I saw Zach the other day, and the guy from the Freshly Grounded team was there as well. And I said, "Oh, we found your £1 the other day." And
he must have thought, this guy's crazy.
We found your £1 like some time back, and we forgot to give back to you. So, and he was doing some work for us. So we said, next time when you invoice us, can you just add £1 to the invoice?
Wow.
And so that's not to show, because that wasn't even me. That was a guy from the team. But it's very important to us, bro. It's very, very important. So honesty is probably like, hopefully, I hope that I can be like sincere in saying that it's something that we really hold in high regard. And then lastly, it's independence. With the whole team, bro, I try and give them as much independence as possible, because the whole reason I didn't want to be an employee is because I didn't want to be, and I'm sure the same for you, and I'm sure the same for you, Callum, like the reason you don't want to be an employee is the number one reason is you don't want to be controlled or have someone hanging over your head. And so I appreciate that when I have employees. And so I give them like massive independence. Generally the structure is this, like we do a 9 to 5 and stuff like that, but like you can manage your own time in like when needed and stuff like that, and if you need to take time off for this, you take time off for that, and it's just like honest conversations, and we've never had an issue. Everyone manages themselves very well. There's not been too many like disciplinaries and stuff because of we try and like really promote independence. And I think again it comes down to like, if you have the culture of independence and everyone's pushing themselves, you start thinking like, oh, he's pushing himself quite a lot, I need to push myself. And so you build this like culture. And also I don't think you would want to have someone I think a person who has that much independence would want to like be conscious of like not losing that. And the most amazing interview I've seen, who's the guy who owns Netflix?
I forgot his name.
That's LinkedIn.
His name's gone.
okay, so the guy who owns Netflix, bro, yeah, his Can's gonna find it for us. They did an interview with him, bro, and this is how Netflix run their organization. It's amazing, bro. It's so inspiring. Reed Hastings. Okay, how they run the organization, bro. Do you know about this?
No.
Oh, bro, it's amazing. They hire, so they pay very high. There's no holiday limit, so you can go on holiday as much as you want. There's great if you get fired. There's great what do you call it? There's great pay basically if you get fired, like a 6-month pay or whatever, and it's very high. There's like great maternity like pay and maternity leave, and it's just like the dream way.
The most idealistic place you could have.
But he said that the caveat for that is that by working in such a great environment, we only hire like elite people. So by hiring elite people, you can give them that, but because they're elite people, they're not going to take that. They're going to also perform. So there's a cost. There's a cost of like being able to provide that. And so I try and have the same mentality. I've got a very small team, bro. I'm nowhere near Netflix. But hopefully, if it grows, I've started implementing that now with our very.
But it's the culture, right? Regardless of the size, it's the culture.
And so I want to have that as a long-term thing. I want to have this thing like where you can get fired because Netflix they have such a fast firing and hiring rate. But that's because if you're not performing, you get fired and you lose all of those great amenities. But and so that's what I want to be like. I want to provide like great pay. I want to provide like complete independence. I want to provide like an environment that people are content, comfortable, happy in. If they want to pray at work, they can pray at work. Like I feel like paternity leave is too small. Like men get 2 weeks paternity. I would want to give them like 2 months paternity, and stuff like that. And so I want to just be able to provide the dream job scenario where you just get your net income in your account every month. You don't have to ever worry about taxes, all covered by the company. But at the same time, it's like you're running your own business. The cost of that, though, bro, has to be that you have to be an elite individual.
Basically, the gratitude in itself would be the reason why you would want to work hard, because of how grateful you are of all these. I
suppose your general character, like you're an honest person through and through, and you're willing to take the hit if you've done something that you like. That you need to be reprimanded for. You put yourself forward and you say, this was because of me. I hold myself responsible and stuff like that.
Okay. So what does success mean to you?
Bro, success to me means like, I suppose, living a life where I don't have like anxiety. I can sleep very easily. I find it easy to be happy, to smile, and where I've provided other people I provided other people like the ability to do the same. I want to have like a hand in other people's like ability to be able to smile and sleep at night without anxiety, have contentment. Success to me is very much so contentment. Not feeling like you owe people money, not feeling like you are like insecure. And success overall is being able to be your 100% authentic self, and you're valued for being 100% your authentic self. I think too much we try and display ourselves how other people think we should be displayed, and that's literally where I want to stop thinking what others will say, because that's a big issue that all of us have. I've had that where I've constantly thought about what others will say, and I remember the transition period I went through. It was when I was in university, and I started my journey caring about what people would say, and then I ended up going so far the opposite way that I would like I remember buying a jumper that I really liked from Primark, and it was a tenner, and before I would like never be seen in Primark because I cared so much what people would say, which makes no sense. And I bought this jumper and I told it on Omar's podcast, and people would be like, anytime people would like, oh, that's a really nice jumper, I'd be like, oh, thanks, bro, it's £10 in Primark. Like I'd like really like tell people, like, so I could like really, I went the complete opposite way. I was like trying to really show that I don't care. So like I'd be like, I used to never like to like go to, like I used to go walk past Lidl at uni, so I'd go to Tesco because I didn't want to be seen with Lidl bags. Then when I like went through this transition of life, I started going to Lidl, and then like anytime anyone spoke about food, I'd be like, have you tried the Lidl bakery? It's amazing. So I went a bit like so much where I'd like speak about it left, right, centre, but I do think being your authentic self and not feeling like you have to care what people say and stuff is amazing.
Do you think that's partly because of social media? And where I'm going with this question actually is, I think I asked the same question to Omar, and I said, you know, people from the outside point of view probably think in your household with Sheikh Beauty and Omar, social media must be so important, and he was like, it's actually the opposite. And so from your perspective, how important is social media to you, and how are you able to remove yourself from the likes, the comments, the hate, whatever it is,
So
and doing what that jumper says.
yeah, that's the one thing I was struggling with maybe like a year or two ago when I mentioned that I started going through this transition of like not understanding it, like if I wanted to create content and stuff. I deleted my Instagram for 6 months at a time, and I'd come back, and I was really confused. And what helped that was putting it in its right place, and turning off notifications was like amazing. Like, have you noticed that I haven't even looked at my phone since we've been here? That's because I don't have WhatsApp notifications turned on anymore. Wow. It's amazing. And nobody's like had any emergency since I've done that. It's been a couple of weeks now. I haven't had WhatsApp notifications.
So you don't get disrupted when it's not in your terms.
Yeah, when I want to check WhatsApp, I check it, reply to what I reply to, go back, and maybe a few hours. If someone really wanted to contact me, it was an emergency, they'd call or text me. And so I'm trying to now implement systems to help me with that. Like, for example, a new system I'm trying to implement, which I'm struggling with, is at 7 p.m. every day, the phone goes on the wire, it goes on charge in the kitchen. Look at that. So social media seriously damages harms your mental health. The phone goes on the wire in the kitchen, right? This is what I haven't mastered this yet, but this is what I'm trying to implement. It's a new system I'm trying to get in place. And I don't use it. So my phone doesn't get used after 7 p.m. That's the idea. If I do want to use it, as in I need to send a text or a phone call, I allow myself, because social media is the real reason I'm trying to stay off it, right? Then I can use it, but it has to remain on the wire. And that's important, because the minute you take it off the wire, then you're like texting while you're getting into bed.
Go down the rabbit hole.
And then all of a sudden, you're in bed now, on your phone, you're like on it for hours. So that's the system I'm trying to implement, and I'm failing at. But hopefully things like that, like setting some systems, and that helps you like manage it, helps, and not feeling the pressure. I've just launched a TikTok account about 2 days ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have about 100 followers, so I'm a TikTok star to an extent. But yeah, now I feel more comfortable with social media, man. Like I'm tweeting, I'm TikToking, and it feels good, bro. Because it's like I feel like it's on my terms.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's
nice.
amazing. That's amazing. That's actually really good practical advice as well.
Yeah.
And actually going back to what you said previously, was part of your success was actually helping people along the way, and you're doing that with Freshly Grounded, and you're also doing that with a new project.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So let's talk about the new project a little bit.
Yeah. So it's called the Huddles. And the concept was that we understood that what people want nowadays is okay. So just a few short years ago, like we're talking maybe just pre-pandemic, so a year ago. Isn't it crazy that?
Yeah,
like,
it feels like it's crazy. Like our memories are based on the last 12 months.
Yeah, it's even crazy that like we describe things as pre and post-pandemic. It's insane. But
it's like BC.
Just pre-pandemic. Yeah, exactly. Just pre-pandemic, bro. People would pay for courses because what people want to pay for is knowledge, right? Now what's been happening is, maybe because of the surge of the pandemic, is that loads of people have created content about knowledge. Not even buying my course, but loads of people create knowledge-based content to the point where it's so much knowledge is available for free now on YouTube and stuff like that. So now people don't necessarily want to pay for knowledge anymore. But what people do want to pay for, what's the one thing that we've been lacking in quarantine and stuff, is community. So now people have the knowledge, but they would pay for a community. And so I wanted to create a community along with the team, because the Huddles is not just me, not just myself. So one of the guys on the Fresh Grinder team partnered with him, another guy called Isa, who's a marketing genius. So the idea of the Huddles is to create a community where every week we have a huddle. So someone like yourself, for example, would lead a huddle on marketing, right? And how you do what you do at Social Awaken. And it's just like 45-minute Q&A, 45-minute TED Talk kind of style, 45-minute Q&A. It's all done on like Zoom, for example. And it's the same community. They're paid community. And the idea of it being paid is not just, again, so we can make money, but it's the idea that when people put their money towards something, it becomes a curated audience. That means that they really want that knowledge. And so, and slowly you build this as a community. So with that, you get the weekly huddles, but you also get access to our like private group where we all talk and we share ideas. And then within that group now, we've got people like a guy who works for Saudi Aramco, one of the biggest companies, the most, what is it? It's like the most profitable, biggest revenue in the world or something like that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's the biggest company in size, I think.
Something like that. And what his job is when there's new people who are joining the company, he trains them on how to, it's called a professional development coach, trains them how to be professionals. And so imagine having someone like that on your group and having access to that. And you can say to him, hey, I've just, like, in my business, I've just employed someone new for the first time. I don't know how to train him in his character. He's great at his skill, but he's very, like, impatient, or he's got unprofessional characteristics, which a lot of people have in their first time job. How do you think I should deal with this? And he'll private message you back because he's in the group. So we're trying to create that community for the Huddles. We're very early stages. We're learning a lot. We're making a lot of mistakes. But if you're like an early onboarder, hopefully you get to tell the stories about all of these, like, things that we started. But yeah, the Huddles is really fun right now.
And again, it goes back to your willingness to want to help as you grow yourself. And that is, for me, one thing that I kind of just associate with you, that you really want to give back, and that genuinely, because there's a lot of people that, you know, they're not exactly who they are behind the cameras. You know, that's just being honest. And I think with you and Omar, that's one thing that I've realized, is that you guys keep it real. How you portray yourself online is who you are as people, and you know how to separate yourself as well, like, from the noise.
I think that has to be down to our parents. Our parents done an amazing job. I think my mum and my dad both amazing, so all credit has to be given to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, now we're gonna do something a little bit fun.
Okay.
It's called the rapid fire questions.
Fine. I've not seen rapid fire before.
Yeah, it's actually something that we started not too long ago.
Fine.
But the purpose of it is, there's a lot of people watching this that are big Faisal Choudhry fans.
No.
And also people that maybe don't know you well enough.
Okay.
So the idea is that they can get a little bit more to get to know you a little bit better than on a personal level.
Fine.
Basically.
I think everybody knows everything about me because I'm so, like, I just talk so much. So I can't imagine that there's going to be anything new.
But you know what it is? Because you do so many podcasts, I think you as a person is split into different episodes. So unless you follow you religiously, they won't really know some of the answers to these questions.
Fine.
But maybe, I mean, if you know Faisal and you know some of the answers before he says it, make sure you comment down below.
Say them before I say them.
Say them before Faisal says them, yeah. Ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's
go.
go.
Am I just giving you a quick answer?
Quick answer, as quick as you can.
Fine.
There's no thinking involved, just...
I'm bad at that. I've never done rapid fire in my entire life. So my
This
first
is fun,
time.
this is fun.
Careful.
Let's go. Night in or night out?
Night in.
Pepsi or Coke?
Pepsi.
Money or love?
Love.
Laundry or dishes?
Laundry.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Your favourite city in the world?
Dubai.
We've had that answer quite a lot, actually. Nice car or nice home?
Nice home.
Netflix or YouTube?
YouTube.
Is that because you're on it?
Maybe.
AJ or Fury? It's coming up, actually.
Oh, AJ.
Ronaldo or Messi?
Ronaldo.
Yes, finally. What's your favourite supercar?
Supercar. I'm really not into cars, bro. I'm gonna have to. I really am not into cars.
You must have a favourite.
A favourite supercar.
Lambo, Ferrari, Tesla. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I don't.
Just if you had a blank check and you had to buy a car.
Okay, fine. Then I would get a. I really want. This is gonna sound so sad, but maybe an X5.
It's a good answer. Horror or comedy movie?
Comedy.
When you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
Top golf.
Okay, we must be missing that actually then.
Mm.
All-time favourite meal?
All-time favourite meal. Sushi.
What was your first job?
Apple.
Where would you like to retire?
Exactly. Where in my career? Where I am now.
Passenger or driver?
Passenger.
Role model growing up?
My brother.
And finally, if you had one superpower, what would it be and why?
To be able to it sounds so sad. The first thing, do you know the first thing came to my mind? My first thing came to my mind was to be able to cuddle as many people as I can. I feel like so many people need a cuddle.
It's true, man. People need love.
When you see someone, you're like, oh man, it's like, give them some warmth.
Yeah,
that's a really rubbish answer. What rubbish superpower?
I'm with you on that, though.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
sometimes you see someone, you just feel like, I want that person to know that they're loved.
That's a thoughtful
You know what I
answer,
mean?
actually.
It's so sad when you see someone like, you just feel like you want to give love to them, man. The world's it's difficult, man. This world is so difficult, and I think there's definitely not enough love in this world, man. It's really
100%.
really sad, and there's so much hate. Like, naturally, we naturally are negative as people. Like, it's so much easier and funner to like we're in a room together, right? And like one of us walks out, it's so much easier for us to be like, oh, see what my manager did. Do you know what I mean? Rather than be like, oh man, like I love his energy. It's so much easier to do the
talk about the negative than the
Yeah,
positive.
it's sad, but
It's the world we live in, unfortunately. It's due to insecurities, I think.
it definitely 100% is due to insecurities. 100%. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Faisal. Before we wrap up,
You want a cuddle, don't you?
yeah, maybe a huddle.
Fine.
But what can we expect now, post-COVID, and also, just things coming up?
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to do the tour. That's like my mission is as soon as we're able to. We've had some like talk of hospitality coming back, but in a way where venues can be like maybe 25% capacity and stuff like that. And we've chosen not to go ahead with that because I just can't wait to have like a packed out arena. Not arena, we're not that big. Packed out theatre. Maybe arena one day. And if for that to take place, we might be waiting a tiny bit longer, but it would mean like a great event. So all my focus is right now is on the live event, and then after that, wherever I have no idea where we're gonna go. I just go with the flow.
And I'm sure a lot of people have fallen in love with you if they don't love you already. So, what's the best place for them to follow you? I know you're Twitter, TikTok, all over the place, but what's the best
now
place?
I actually have TikTok and I only have 100 followers. So if you want to be an early investor in my TikTok, the best place probably is my Instagram, which is Faisal, FAISAL CHDRY, or Twitter at Freshly Faisal, and TikTok is also Freshly Faisal.
Perfect. I'll also put it in the description.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Faisal, any final message?
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, keep doing what you're doing. Your consistency, your hard work, everything is very, very inspiring, and we need more of it. So thank you so much.
There you go. See you soon.